Welcome to another episode of the Warrior Rulebook podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be talking to an artist today and really just talk about self care. And her name is Sara Glupker, and she spent her formative years exploring different creative paths such as sewing, crafting, baking, and writing. As a child, she dove into any creative project that she could find, and I was so happy to know that she's also a podcast host, and I was able to listen to her and just be able to feel appreciated, even though I don't consider myself to be a top artist. Her preferred medium is acrylic, but she loves to paint with oils and use a variety of other mediums. Also, over the past 16 years, she has exhibited her artwork in numerous shows, both regionally and nationally, and has won awards in jury competitions, such as first place in the 2022 Regional Juried Arts Competition and the Carnegie Center for the Arts, Three Rivers, Michigan, January 2022, and selected as a top 20 finalist for the first Bloem's Art Competition, Holland, Michigan's 2022 Tulip Time Festival. And so she has other accomplishments as well, but she lives with her husband and their three daughters. And her additional hobbies include baking, cooking, running, and hiking, planting flowers, and sewing, painting furniture, and spending time with her daughter. So I'm really excited to talk to her today because I want to understand like how all of this fits in with self-care. I think that we can definitely see that by her bio, but I'm just happy to introduce her today. So, without further ado, let's welcome Sara Glupker.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here on your show today, Monique.
Of course, of course. Thank you for being here. So, can you just start us off and answer how has being creative allowed you to practice self-care?
Well, I truly believe that everybody is creative. As human beings, we all need to create. And by saying yes to those nudges and those desires to be creative is a way of honoring who we are and your human spirit. And it is a wonderful way to release energy, to process emotions and your feelings. And it is soothing, it can be energizing. And when we take time for ourselves, doing the things that we want to do in a creative way, creating and being creative, that is a way of honoring who we are and giving ourselves a moment to pause. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, definitely. So, can you also just tell me the healing benefits of being creative? Because I never
Oh
really
my,
considered that.
you did it? Okay.
No.
The healing benefits of being creative. Creating is so healing. And I think there's a lot of reasons. One is when you're in the mode of creating, you're activating different parts of your brain. And that can be something that can be healing in a way of making you realize your potential and can give yourself a boost as far as that aha moment where you tried something new and you realized you could do it. That is so healing and can be so exciting. Art is also healing in a way of there's a lot of things that we keep inside of us and we bottle things in, and being creative and creating is a way to channel that energy and put it on paper. And when I'm creating, when I'm painting at my easel, it relaxes me in a way that another activity such as chores around my house would not do for me. And it gives myself a moment to pause. And sometimes when you're in that zone of creating, you can let your mind wander a little bit, and it really helps bring up things from within that may be bothering you, may have happened. I learned so much about myself when I create my art. I paint very intuitively, and sometimes I just let the paint flow. And I learn so much about myself just by creating pieces and then looking back and asking myself, what does this mean? Why do I care about flowers? Why is this relevant to me? And it's a way of, it's like an archaeological dig where it kind of digs up a lot of things, and it helps you learn more about yourself, helps you process those emotions, and it's magical. It's just it's a great way to connect to God and spirit too, where you're in the act of making something, which is such a lovely expression, and I know that God loves that expression and creating, and it just brings you closer to Him and to that, and um, yeah, so I don't know. There's so many reasons why art is healing. I don't even know if I touched on all of it. That's just maybe the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And I could definitely agree with that as a creative. I just feel like when we do put our hands to work to do something, especially if it's for God as well, I think that not only are we able to get closer to Him, but you can see the development of yourself through time. And I know that there are some people out there that it's hard for them to really articulate their feelings or articulate things that may be important or what they feel inside. It's like they're trying to get it out, but they're hitting a wall. And so I truly believe that art and music, those are definitely powerful mediums that allow people to get their feelings out. And so then you have like some people that are really good at articulating their emotions, they're able to interpret it. So I think that's just really cool. So,
Definitely. And I also think that when people have emotions and feelings inside of them, the maybe the top of mind thing to do is to talk to somebody about it. And sometimes we don't even know what to say. We don't even know what's bothering, you don't know what's bothering you or what's going on exactly. And writing in a journal is creative and it's an art form. Writing or painting or drawing or spending time gardening, those are all activities that can really help bring these things to the surface that it might be an easier medium for you than talking to somebody. I
yes.
love your points.
Yes,
Yes.
I love your points too. It's a great
Okay.
collaboration.
Yay.
So, can you tell me where you draw your inspiration from when you are sitting down at your easel?
Yes. Right now, I'm really drawn to flowers, and I wasn't really sure why, because at first I was kind of hard on myself. I was like, why am I drawn to flowers? Is it just because they're pretty? But through exploration and allowing myself to explore flowers and gardens and such, I've realized how connected that is to my past. And my grandmother had a huge garden and loved to garden. And being connected to those flowers and painting them or being in my little humble garden helps me feel connected to her. And then I also learned recently that on my mom's side of the family, different side of the family, her grandmother had this huge flower garden. And so I'm learning all of these things about myself, and a lot of my work ties back to my family and my heritage. And that's what I'm really interested in exploring by making these modern floral pieces.
Nice, nice. Can you tell me a little bit more about your heritage and your background and how it relates to your art?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from northern Michigan, and it is a very rural area. Beautiful, lots of lakes up there. The Great Lakes, we revive Lake Michigan, and it's just the scenery up there is so incredibly gorgeous. And my whole family is from up there, and it's really, really interesting to look back and see, for instance, my grandmother, she was very, very creative. She had this huge garden. She crocheted and she sewed and she baked. And then I have these other relatives, like my great grandmother, like I said, that had a huge garden, and a lot of teachers in my family. And I'm also really drawn to teaching. That's why I started my podcast. I was very, very interested in teaching and sharing my knowledge and what it's like to be a creative person. And truly, I'm not from a huge family of artists. My aunt is artistic. I would definitely consider her an artist, but not traditional art studio artists. So I feel like I kind of came out of nowhere, but I have all of these other creative people in my family. My dad's a mechanic, and that's very creative, lots of problem solving and engineering and stuff. So, my background, I have a lot of creative people, but not necessarily artists per se, like traditional artists.
Okay, yeah. So, can you also tell me as well about the similarities between creating and writing and baking? And this is kind of like a two-part question now that we're talking, but do you see any similarities between you and your grandmother and anyone else that has baked or written in your family? Do you kind of still use their recipes, or have you been able to
Hmm.
create your own in that process?
Yeah, definitely there's a connection between them. And we do have some family recipes that have been passed down, which is so amazing, right? That taste memory that we have where you try grandma's peanut butter cookie recipe and it brings you right back to her kitchen. And yeah, so although I don't come from a family of fine artists, and I do admire my artist friends who have that. I think that's so cool when one of their parents was an artist or a relative. But I think it's honoring that urge to create. It's honoring that nudge to be creative. And I think it's so fascinating how similar all these different mediums are because I could create an entire art show where there are maybe 12 paintings, which is very similar to an artist, a musician creating an album with 12 songs, or a writer creating a book with 12 chapters. Um, so the crossover is not that different. The language is very similar, and I love the idea of everybody has something that they need to do creatively as their medium and figuring out what that is. So it's all about being busy, using your hands and your mind, and just getting to work, right?
Yes, and I think it's definitely a time of self-discovery too when you sit down and you create and you learn more things about yourself. So, can you tell me how art has evolved for you? How has your art personally evolved over time?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question. How has my art evolved over time? Well, from a very basic standpoint, my palette has changed a lot. So I used to just use the color straight out of the tube, bright primary colors. And more recently, my palette has changed and evolved, and I've been spending a lot of time exploring color and mixing color combination, making new color combinations, playing with pastels. My palette has gotten a lot softer. I do Oh, how else has my art changed over time? In a way, it's similar, but in a way, it's different. Thematically, I'm definitely painting more florals. I went through a major tree painting phase where I was painting a lot of trees. And now I'm really, really interested in man-made architecture. And so not like skyscrapers, but more so the shape of a home or a house or cottage and how that is incorporated into the landscape. And I'm definitely putting a lot more thought into my work. So I'm less exploring different subjects and I'm more specific about what I want to create. And I have more intention with each piece, if that makes sense. So I'm not as exploratory with my own personal art, although I think that's very important to explore. I love that about you. I feel like you are very open to exploring and trying new things, and I think that as we get older, it's easy to get into a mode of, okay, this is the type of art I make, and this is what I do, and or this is my favorite medium, and not to try to venture out. So I am experimenting with water media now, which is new, watercolor and gouache,
Mhm.
and that's been pretty exciting. So it's a push though to get me to explore. It's like you want to just keep doing what you're doing. But
Right, because
I
you
hope
kind of
that answered your questions.
yeah, because like you're already finding your rhythm, so you already know like what you're used to, and you like you said, you still are able to explore, but I think with certain themes that constantly keep coming up, I think that's also a reflection of the person that you are. So, like, do you think that by you having more of a softer approach to your art, do you think that is kind of like a reflection of your personality or what?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. The art is a mirror to who we are as a person, and it's really cool to look back and see the evolution of what you create, right? And yeah, I definitely think I've calmed down, and I'm I'm definitely seeking more inner peace right now, and healing is a big theme for me, and so I'm just allowing myself to pick the soothing colors and to really mellow out in that moment and not, back when I was in college and art school, my best friend and I, we would go to the local, it wasn't like a 7-Eleven, but it was a local party store on campus and they had fountain pop. And we would get the largest, most caffeinated drink ever, and then we would just be, so energized to create. And I just can't create in that highly, like all the caffeine. And I just need to be more calm. And I like to drink tea and water and, just have a different experience while creating. So, although it energizes me on a more sustainable level, maybe.
So it's like having your own personal oasis then.
Yes. Yes.
Nice, nice. So we're both on Jenna Kutcher's launch team and for her book
Mm-hmm.
How Are You Really? And it's
Mm-hmm.
about self-discovery and staying true to your feelings. I want to kind of take a detour from the question that I wanted to ask. I want to get back to it, but I just had a thought like while we were talking. Have you ever felt that you needed to create or paint something that you weren't feeling? Like did you ever feel like you had to mask your feelings while creating art?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think I definitely experienced that when I went to school for art because we had professors that would give us certain types of assignments, and you're not necessarily in the mood for that. I've
Yeah, I
also,
hated those.
I know, right? Oh my goodness. I've also been given, I've also worked on certain projects where I've had a hard time because I might not have felt aligned with the the theme or the thing that um, my client had wanted me to create. I have been making custom, they call it commission work, but it's custom paintings for people for the last 15 years. And it's been such a pleasure and an honor to do that. There have been a few instances where I've said yes to something and I realized, okay, that wasn't aligned with my spirit and what I want to do. And so it's very hard to complete a project like that. But overall, I would say most of my projects are not like that. But for instance, one time I was asked to paint as a ceramic plaster bust, which is like a shoulder level up model statue of Elvis, and it was this white plaster statue of Elvis from the shoulders up. And somebody asked me, I think I was just out of college and I was desperate, but they offered me like $100 to paint this white plaster thing of Elvis. And it was so hard to mix the skin tones and the color matching, and it did not go well. And it took hours. It was one of those things where I thought, I will never paint a sculpture again. If
Wow.
I, but yeah, so I think as we get, if you're more tapped into who you are, and I love that about Jenna's book, is really getting to the heart of how are you really doing and who are you and what do you want to do, and not just taking in everything that comes at you, but being more true to self. Less of those things will happen. You will say no to more things and yes to more things that line up with who you are. So love
Yes.
everything Jenna Kutcher puts out. Seriously, she's amazing.
Yes, and I definitely think as well, like this is definitely a time where it's like no culture. I guess that's how I can say it. Like it's just being able to say no. That's what I mean and when I say
Yes.
that. Because
Mm-hmm.
like, for years you just feel like there are certain things that you shouldn't say no to. And I know myself even now, like someone may treat me a certain way or they may deny me of something, but it's like me knowing that I was in their place not too long ago. I'm like, I don't want you to feel like that. So it's like I still find myself sometimes just wanting to be that resource and just be there for them. So I don't know if that's toxic or or what, but I definitely have been also practicing trying to say no more, especially if I'm not available for something, because I don't want to be taken advantage of either, you know.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know.
So, like, I don't know if you've had a chance to finish the book yet, but if not, throughout the process of reading the book so far, do you think that it has enhanced your creativity or inspired you to create something after reading it?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not as far through the book as I should be, but I've
No
really
pressure,
enjoyed
same
the
here.
I know, it's like, don't ask me what page I'm on. But I really love her writing style. I almost think that her writing style alone is so inspiring to me. I have book ideas too, and maybe you do too. But her relaxed conversation is so refreshing, and I really feel like it breaks down the barrier of what a writer can look like. So I love that about her. I know creatively that has me thinking more and more about those types of projects. But just from the parts that I've read, I know talking about getting down to really honoring the people in your life and trying to figure out, internally how you are doing and taking that time to connect and really figure things out is so important. And I know if I'm super busy, then I'm living on a more superficial level just because I'm just getting through. I have 3 daughters and we have sports and activities and family get togethers and friends. And I think when you're in that autopilot mode, it's very easy to bypass even those creative nudges or creativity. And I'm most creative when I'm most tapped into who I am and those inner nudges, and um, I'm really tapped into how I'm doing. And when you're in that super busy go mode, then it's almost impossible. You have to. So I love that about Jenna and this book is that it's really encouraging us to take that pause and just really figure it out. And it's a vulnerable thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, and I do think that creating art can also help you figure a lot of those things out. So that
Yeah.
self-care piece.
Yes, I think it's definitely important just to spread that message of breathing, because I think sometimes, like how I had mentioned on your when you were interviewing me, like I had mentioned pretty much just being in that space where you're just wearing multiple hats and like it's okay to wear multiple hats. But I'm like, now I'm just like, no, it's not okay to wear multiple hats. Like I need to be focused. I need to streamline my what I the power that I've been given to help others. And if I'm tearing myself in like 10 different directions, I'm not really serving anyone, definitely not myself. So I just love how her book definitely encourages you to breathe as well. So, shameless plug here. If you do want to check out the book, it's howareyourreallybook.com. And you can try to pre order while there's time left at the time of this recording, or you can just purchase it after it's released to everyone. So, yeah, my next question that I want to say is, in spite of all your accomplishments, congratulations, by the way, because you have
Thank
like a
you.
whole sheet of accomplishments. But at the height of your success, have you ever been criticized for your creativity? And how did you navigate that even with all those accolades?
Ooh, have I ever been oh, sure. I Yeah. Um it's funny because I was at that show in January that I won first place, and that was such a huge honor. And I was kind of lurking in the background at the reception, and if I've definitely heard, somebody say that, wow, this piece got first place. That's kind of weird, but okay. Or I had another person who owned a piece of mine who had purchased it, and I've been making art and selling it for 16 years. So this has been a long journey, a pretty long journey, I'd say. And she purchased a piece for me quite a while ago, so maybe I'd say 10 years ago. And the side comment to her husband was, "Oh, do you see the price on that piece now? What? I can't even believe that because that's not what we paid for our piece." And definitely being an artist or a person who's out on their own like that, trying to be creative and do their thing or sell their work, you have to have a thick skin because there's going to be criticism. I have had, a comment on a Facebook post of, make sure you're making time for your children, which is that was a comment from a professor from long ago, and I thought, well, gee, that's very judgmental, and you don't know how much time I spend with my children, or you don't know the hours I spend at night when they're in bed working on my business. You don't know what that looks like. So I'm sure it was well intentioned. He was just trying to remind me, they grow up fast and make sure you take time for them. But at the same time, there are going to be comments, and definitely with social media, you're going to get that too, where you're going to have people making comments, and you're not for everybody. So I've learned throughout the years to kind of have that thick skin and accept that you're not for everybody, and it's okay. And I think that's fine because there's plenty to go around, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, criticism is deeply rooted in the person themselves. I don't even think it really has anything to do with you. It just kind of, you're kind of on the receiving end of it. So it's like wherever it goes, it's kind of like it lands in your lap and you're just like, wow, like, did they really think about it before they said? Like, I know sometimes even I may say something that's just off. And I think for us to really, kind of minimize that criticism, I think it's best to try to have a conversation if it's feasible. I know in some situations it's just not, but I think definitely like the comment that that woman had made, she probably was just thinking like, maybe I can't afford that, or, you know,
Mhm.
I'm just happy that I have it now. But the way that it reflected onto you is just like, wow, so you think my art is cheap? So
Mhm.
it's just interesting how the
Mhm.
human communication goes. But yeah, I think definitely if we all were just in a better space to understand each other more and really like ask those questions before we make judgments like that, I think that people wouldn't really be criticized that often. So that's definitely interesting. But
Mhm.
I definitely commend you for keep going, because when I look at your website and all the art that you have to offer, like it gives me a breath of fresh air. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I love your feedback on my response too, because I think that you brought up something that's so nice and not nice, but it's, I love your perspective on it, where it's giving people a lot of grace, and it's a more loving type of analysis of it, where you're saying, it's, this is a reflection on them, and a lot of times people don't understand what they're saying, or they didn't mean it that way. So I think that's a very important point to bring up, is that being a creative person, putting yourself out there makes you vulnerable, and artists are very, I mean, these are like our babies that we put out in the world, right? So we're going to be sensitive. We're going to be emotional about what we create. And a lot of feedback is going to be, it's a very touchy thing. But just giving people the benefit of the doubt, because I've definitely had comments in the past, and now that I'm older, you can be mad about it or sad, or you can think, well, maybe they didn't mean it that way, or they just said it like on a whim, or they don't really think that about you. So I love that. So good advice.
Yeah, I definitely will say it definitely does not feel good. It stings. And
Mhm.
you're out here just thinking, I'm just trying to make it. I want to express myself and I want to follow a dream. And sometimes, people will say different things just because either A, they don't have the courage to do it themselves, or
Mhm.
B, they are quite literally scared for you. So, I think that's just a way that they either try to defend you or try to defend themselves. But it's definitely an interesting dynamic. But to come up into lighter air,
Yeah.
Can you give us some ideas for people who may not have considered art to be a form of self care or creative? Can you just kind of shed light on that and what kinds of activities they might can do artistically to practice self care?
Ooh, I love this question. That's good. Okay. Well, one thing I learned from the 2020 shutdown where we all had to stay home was I believe that we have a lot of stuff at our house that we can already use. So, a lot of creative materials that, and I'm guilty of this 1,000,000%, but have I bought fabric before that I was inspired when I went to the fabric store and then I never used it? Yes. Have I purchased yarn before thinking I was going to knit my first blanket? Yes. So that's one way I like to encourage people to start is you may already have creative materials in your house that you can use. The last thing I want to do is send people off to the art store and buy a bunch of stuff and spend a ton of money because there can become a layer of guilt that comes with that or oh my goodness, what did I do? Or maybe you buy these really nice paints and you feel like they're too precious to use or a nice canvas. So I would say start super basic and kind of reach for what you already have or, maybe it's something that you wanna treat yourself with. Maybe you have a gift card to a store, a craft store. Maybe you have, $20 that you wanna spend, but I would not go crazy. And I would just say, really get quiet with yourself and ask yourself, what are you interested in? What sounds exciting to you? Um, is there a type of art medium that you're interested in exploring? And then try to figure out how to get those tools in your hands. And then I would also say, make it super easy for you to, if you're starting out, make it super easy for you to create. So I would suggest getting like a plastic Tupperware tub or a basket and then put those materials in that and have it so you can put it in a closet or under your bed. And then when you feel creative, you can pull that out and get started. Examples of mediums that I think would be very accessible for people. Watercolor is great because you can buy a pan of watercolors for $5 to $10. You can use copy paper or you can buy a pad of watercolor paper for maybe $10 and get started. I think watercolor is so great because it's like you have two things, you get it out and you start. And I'm a painter, so I definitely think a lot in terms of painting. But try a new recipe. Go look up. Go to the library and get a new cookbook and try out some recipes. It's super creative. Start. Maybe you want to sew, or maybe you're interested in what do we do with all these photos that are on our phones, right? Maybe you can research a way to. Do you want to try out Shutterfly, or do you want to try Snapfish, or do you want to uh, just print photos out and put them in a scrapbook, or maybe you want to put them in a box and you decorate the box. Um, Different ideas for creating journaling. You could buy a notebook from the store. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, or find one laying around your house and write. Maybe you want to write poetry. And I do believe that so we're in a great age to be creative because we have the internet and we have Pinterest. And I know a lot of people have Pinterest boards. And if you're not feeling inspired, go there and kind of look and see is there something you want to do. And when you actually make a plan, set a date in you may have to schedule it because we're all busy. Okay, it's Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I'm going to get my stuff out and I'm going to give myself that creating time. When we schedule it and when we do it, you're going to feel so good. You're going to feel so boosted and uplifted. And I'm all about creating for the sake of creativity, not necessarily about selling. I do think that we've kind of gotten away from that where you can only create if you're going to sell the thing.
Mhm.
And I do believe that you need to make things just for you and for your healing and for your well-being. And don't post it, don't share it, put it back under your bed. It doesn't have to be a work of art. It can just be whatever you made that day.
Yes, that is wonderful advice. I love that advice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Because I was it's funny because I actually saw a post, I think this past weekend, that was saying I don't want to go outside because every time I go outside, I spend $100. So
Mm.
thank you for just giving us all the tips on just using what we have. And I think that that is good advice, even in other aspects of our lives, like whether we
Mhm.
want to start a business or we want to start a new venture. We think we have to drop so much money. And, like, in certain instances, you do need to drop, some money if you want to get a better result. But I think with starting, sometimes just using what you have and using what's already inside of you, that is what really helps you out. Because even if you do hire a business coach or you want to collaborate with someone else, they're pretty much going to pull out of you what's already inside of you. So I just think that that's wonderful advice, just being able to use what's nearby to create
Mhm.
something. I think that's
Yeah.
really cool.
No need to run to the store and spend more money on gas, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
gee.
gas. Oh my goodness. That's expensive too. Yeah,
Yeah.
so can you tell me about your studio updates now? And so for people that will are interested in
Mhm.
signing up for them, what can they expect?
Okay. I have I have high hopes and aspirations for my studio newsletter, but I like to email my subscribers once to twice a month and give my subscribers more behind the scenes storytelling and firsthand accounts of what's going on in the studio. And if I have a new collection that I'm launching, my email subscribers hear about it first. If I'm hosting a new event or if I have something exciting going on, my email subscribers learn about it first. And you can sign up for my email subscription through my website, which is saraglupkerart.com. And at the bottom of each page, there's a box that you can fill out to sign up for my newsletter. I love the idea of posting once a week or two or three times a month. Sometimes, life gets a little busy, but yeah, I am definitely going to be emailing more because I love doing that, and I do love connecting with a smaller audience necessarily than social media. So thank you for asking.
Of course. And are they going to be updated with your podcast episodes too?
Oh, well, they should be.
Yes. Yes, because those are some good episodes. I just feel like
Yeah.
it's just like nice. I feel like I can just take a break and just listen to Sarah talk.
Oh, thank you. And I feel that way about your podcast. You're helping so many people and you have such wisdom, and I just love your relaxed, casual way that you present. And yeah, so same. Same
Thank
with,
you.
yeah. I'm not great about. My podcast is not even a year old yet, so I'm just getting into how can you market it more. So I'm probably gonna have to use you more for your help to do that.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hmm.
So,
Yes,
can you also tell me about your paintings that are for sale? Do you have any like around you right now that you might could show?
I do. I do. I do. Well, I have a variety of sizes, and for instance, I have little ones like this. This one's called the First Blooms of Spring. This one's a little more abstract, but this
Nice.
one has a lot of texture. It's a 5 by 5 inch, I believe, and there's gold paint on it. So I have little ones, and then I can get up and show you. I just released a springy collection
Okay.
of tulips because we have a lot of tulips blooming in Michigan, and I was a part of that Tulip Time exhibition and poster contest. I'm trying to figure out my camera here. And so this is a 16 by 20 tulip painting,
I
and
love
that
that
one's on. Oh, you do? Thank
one.
you. There's a lot of bright colors. This one I went more bright. And then to talk about my more muted palette, I made a mini series of tulips. This one has a blushy pink tulips, and my camera is backwards, so it's very weird. But I think this one's 14 by 48, 16
Wow.
by 48.
Mhm.
Um, and my
Yeah,
work
red
has
is my
quite a bit of.
color.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yay! Oh, and I have a large painting. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe I'll tilt my camera. My studio is crazy. right there, and that's a commission
Wow.
piece for somebody. Yeah, that's going to be a sailboat,
Okay. Awesome.
um, which I've never painted a sailboat before, but it's going to be super fun.
Nice, nice.
And I'm getting ready. I'm going to be hosting a summer art camp at my studio this week, just one day this week and one day next week, and then a full week in August. If you're local to the Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo area of Michigan, I'm hosting a camp for kiddos in grades 3 through 5 who just completed grades 3 through 5. And we're going to be making all the things, multiple step art projects and different mediums, and it's gonna be so fun. So that's Wednesday this week. I have a camp, so I have to after this I'll be cleaning my studio, getting it ready.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. All right. So, can you let us know where we can find you and more of your art?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So my website is www.saraglupkerart.com, and the links will be in the show notes. I'm on Instagram at Sara Glupker, Facebook. You can look me up under Sara Strong Glupker artist. Strong was my maiden name. I have a podcast which is called I Like Art, and it's for anybody who's interested in art as a topic and creativity. A lot of things that I talked about today, that's the heart of my show. And it's not necessarily for artists, it's for people who are interested in art and creativity and just how to be more creative. So you can find my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find my Instagram page. I just started for that. It's at I Like Art podcast on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, and that's Cherry Tree Art Studio Sara Glupker. That's the name of my studio. And you can also find my art featured just recently released in issue number 30 of Create Magazine. And
Congrats.
thank you so much. That came out a couple weeks ago, and you can order that issue of Create Magazine on Amazon. I can post a link to that also. And that is a really cool article because they talk about my studio and the whole backstory behind the name Cherry Tree Art Studio. And it's really cool. I'm really honored and excited about that. And then, like you said, I have a mailing list, so you can join that through my website. So I think that's everything.
Nice, nice. And I, as a social media marketer, I am so happy to hear the saturation of you putting yourself on different platforms. So thank you for that. That was like the cherry on the cake, or the icing on the cake, I should say. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not as frequently, I don't post as frequently as I probably should, but any kind of progress you can make, any kind of, any amount of effort is better than no effort. That's what I always say. So, yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to be making more YouTube videos this summer, more about my process and about my artwork. My one of my daughters is really good at video editing, so I'm actually going to be hiring her to do some editing for me and
Awesome.
sharing more that way too.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. And to my listeners, I hope that you are inspired to create art and not, feel like you have to go out of your way to create it, but just using it as a way of self care. So we will see
Yes.
you when we see you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Thank you,
Of
Monique.
course.
Oh, it's been an honor.